So, after last week's kind of heady, more contemplative vibe for Death Stranding, I decided to go back to something a little more high velocity. And by that I mean I'm rummaging through my grab bag of other things I grabbed from the Steam sale. So I grabbed this week's topic, Kill Knight, because I thought it was cool looking, and I was not disappointed. So let's strap in and see what this one's all about, or more importantly, why I think you should play it. We're swapping up the format a little bit for this one because there's barely any story to speak of in Kill Knight. Basic setup is that you play as a lone knight trapped inside of what looks like a brutalist ever-shifting hell tower, and you gotta fight your way through 5 layers of hell. And the way they visualize this is as some lone knight getting kitted the fuck up by these monks who handle his equipment, and then you basically swan dive in. That's one way to make an entrance, I suppose. And the narrative stops there, from what I've seen. I'm not sure if there's more, but what was there was short, sweet, and frankly, I'm personally kind of cool with the minimal setup, dive right the hell in kind of stories for games. Now to talk about the deliciously complex mechanics. Kill Knight is, from the footage you are seeing right now, an incredibly difficult top-down twin-stick shooter. It is also a very mechanically dense game on top of that as well. When you first load the game up, you are introduced to the tutorial and it starts off simple enough. You got to learn how movement works with a dash that is invincible for a short time. Then you get to shooting, first with your pistols as a form of crowd control and infinite ammo, and secondly with your heavy weapon that takes out huge swaths of enemies but has limited ammo. Followed by then learning how your melee attack works, which also refills your heavy weapons. And this is just the basics of moving and fighting, the most basic of controls. From there you get into more complex territory, like these blood gems that drop from every enemy you kill. You can either run over them to increase your kill power, which is represented by the bar at the top of the screen, to increase your movement speed and pistol damage. Or you can actively absorb them and charge your wrath gauge for your heavy weapon. When it's full, you can then drop what's basically a super attack that changes with your heavy weapon. It's great for clearing out large hordes of enemies and racking up kill power. It's also the only form of health regeneration in the game, which is important to note because you are squishy as hell. And that's before getting into how said super attacks are needed to break through purple armored enemies to trigger giant explosions and thus more healing, countering enemy melee attacks with your own and even stopping time with them. These 3 different active triggers, one for reloading your pistols, one for a beefed up sword attack, and the third for an enhanced absorption, and the executions on larger enemies. If that rambling list wasn't any indication, Kill Knight is my favorite kind of video game in that it's very mechanically dense, and all of those mechanics very much overlap and play off of each other. And you will need to adapt fucking quickly, because if you don't, you will die over and over and over again. There are 5 levels, or layers as they're referred to fight your way through. Doesn't sound like much, does it? That's where the equipment and difficulty scaling comes into play. While you got the aforementioned pistols and heavy weapons, you also got armor and equipable trinkets with different abilities. Different dash types, reduced cooldowns, increased pickup radius, stuff like that. What makes it interesting is that all of the gear has unlock requirements that leverage their specific mechanics to unlock the newer stuff. But if you're having a hard time doing it, you can still just outright buy the new stuff with the currency you rack up from playing. My go-tos are the starting set of pistol, sword, and shotgun. But I find myself going with the second sword for a more melee-centric playstyle, and the most recently acquired sniper rifle that can ricochet shots off of walls. And these other heavy weapons got their own super attacks as well, like heat-seeking missiles, mortar grenades, etc. Also great for getting those strong healing crystals. All of these add up to make for an incredible arsenal of weapons and abilities to go toe-to-toe with some real nasty creatures. With 22 individual monsters, all with their own abilities and attack patterns, combined with the ever-shifting layer layouts, and the damage and score scaling depending on one of Kill Knight's 4 difficulty settings, there's a lot to sink your teeth into with this one. And I want to tell a story of how I came to really understand what Kill Knight is trying to do. I started off by going onto the initial difficulty setting, Acolyte, because I usually go with the normal difficulty. It's shout out as a baseline experience most of the time. And let me tell you that I got my ass kicked over and over again. To the point where, on the second layer, the game pulls a Devil May Cry 3 and goes, "Hey, you might want to go to easy mode to practice your mechanics, my guy." And while most people would think of that as incredibly dickish, I fucking lost my shit laughing, because it's been a long time since I was last humbled by a video game. And it clearly meant no malice, because these mechanics are, like I said, dense as heck. So I went down to the regret difficulty, where things hit a bit more softly, and took the time to get my reps in. And I managed to get all the layers unlocked and 4 of the 5 of them beaten. And you can tell these are handcrafted because these are the same enemy spawns across different difficulties. And this is also how I learned that the level progress is difficulty specific. So for all intents and purposes, the majority of the footage that you are seeing is from the regret or easy mode. And whoever said it was easier was a liar, because I still got my ass kicked. Mainly because I kept forgetting about specific mechanics, namely the time stop on the melee counter, and the AoE screen clear. All of this stuff comes together to make for a nice rhythm of going in, fighting, dying, and going again. You rip and tear and rip and tear and rip and tear and rip and fucking tear. It's so good. But it also makes it so you can't fully turn your brain off when playing, because that's how you make goofy mistakes and die. And I kinda like that. I like it when games require me to think when I'm playing them, and it lends itself to the idea of mastery that it's trying to sell. And on top of that, it just feels good to fight stuff in Kill Knight. Like, it feels really genuinely smooth to move, shoot, and slash. Oh, and before I forget, there's a weekly challenge mode called The Descent, where you have to tackle one of the layers with a predetermined gear set and see how far you get. And it's really fun, like the game in Microcosm almost. I think that's enough of that. As a game you play, it's engaging, fun, and tough. And if a game is at least one of those, it's got my seal of approval. I love the way Kill Knight looks. It's got this weird, lo-fi, CRT closed-circuit monitor feel mixed with incredibly brutalist architecture and some fucked-up looking monster designs. The entire thing feels like a mix of both Blasphemous and Warhammer 40k, specifically the Imperium of Man, and that's very funny to say, because nearly all of the cool shit from the Imperium of Man's aesthetic was ripped off wholesale from Catholicism, and Blasphemous was a very Spanish interpretation of Catholicism. So I guess it'd be Catholicism squared? Whatever. Even with the aesthetic being as gnarly as it is, it manages to never get cluttered. It always feels readable, even in times when it feels like it shouldn't. And that's just good visual design. And it sounds good to boot. Between weapon and firearm sound effects and the heavy electronic soundtrack, it very much evokes the game Devil Daggers, at least in terms of vibes. Hell, if you put this on an arcade cabinet or Steam Deck, it would look fucking sick as hell. To look back, the sounds and looks of Kill Knight are pretty sweet. Kill Knight is a fun and challenging twin-stick shooter. It will bust your chops a bit while you learn it, but when you get the hang of its interlocking mechanics, levels, and enemies, you will find an experience that is weirdly zen for how hyper-violent it is. So grab your guns, grab your sword, and swan dive into the nearest hell pit, because this has the Mojo seal of approval. And that'll be it for the video. Thank you very much for making it to the end. Be sure to like the video, it helps the channel out a bunch, and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can see whenever I put up a new video. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful weekend.